The great hall of the Galactic Concord stretched for nearly a mile in every direction. Its walls were made of living crystal that had been growing for 10,000 years. The crystal remembered everything. Every word spoken in this chamber lived forever in its structure. Every decision, every treaty, every declaration of war and peace existed somewhere in those glowing walls. Today, 12 species had gathered for the monthly assembly. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in their designated sections. Some breathed oxygen, others survived on methane or pure radiation. A few existed as pure energy, their forms flickering like flames in specially designed containment fields. At the center of it all sat the Council of Elders. These were not simply old politicians or experienced diplomats. The elders were ancient beyond measure. The youngest among them had lived for 6,000 years. The oldest, a crystalline being known simply as the Arbiter, claimed to remember the formation of the Concord itself. The Arbiter rarely spoke. When he did, the galaxy listened. But today, the assembly focused on more routine matters. Trade disputes between the Morvani and the Stellar Collective. A minor border conflict in the Outer Rim. The usual business of keeping 12 species from destroying each other. Then the doors opened, and High Commander Theron Vass of the Velcari Empire strode into the chamber. The Velcari were the newest members of the Concord, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 800 years ago. In galactic terms, they were children. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, their bodies covered in thick scales of deep purple and black. Their eyes glowed with an inner fire that reflected their aggressive nature. Theron was considered young even by Velcari standards. He had risen to power through a combination of military genius and political cunning. Many on the council distrusted him, but none could deny his effectiveness. He walked to the center of the chamber and waited for recognition. The current speaker, a gas giant-dwelling creature called Mothral, acknowledged him with a wave of its tentacles. High Commander Theron, you have requested emergency time before this assembly. State your purpose. Theron's voice boomed through the hall. I bring news of opportunity. As you know, the humans have begun expanding their trade routes near Velcari border space. A ripple of unease passed through the assembly. Several of the elders shifted in their seats. The Arbiter's crystalline form flickered with internal light. Theron continued, seemingly unaware of the reaction. These humans possess something valuable, a rare isotope called Helion-7. It exists only in their territory. This substance can improve our FTL drives by 300%. Imagine what we could achieve with such technology. What exactly are you proposing? Mothral asked carefully. I am proposing that we open formal negotiations with the humans, perhaps establish a trade agreement. Their technology is primitive, their military weak. They would benefit greatly from our protection and guidance. The chamber fell silent. It was not the silence of consideration. It was the silence of fear. Finally, an elder spoke. Her name was Vesizara, and she had been old when the Velcari were still building their first cities. Her body was wrapped in flowing robes that hid whatever form lay beneath. High Commander, she said, her voice like wind through dead leaves. You speak of the humans. Are you aware of Directive 7? Theron's scales rippled with annoyance. I am aware of it. I find it absurd. Another ripple of unease. This time, it bordered on panic. Directive 7 clearly states, Vesara continued, that humanity is to be left undisturbed. No contact, no provocation, no exceptions. This directive is the foundation of Concord law. It supersedes all other considerations. And I am asking why, Theron replied. I have studied the humans. They occupy perhaps 40 star systems. Their ships are slow and poorly armed. Their lifespans are laughably short. They pose no threat to anyone. You have studied them, Vesara said. But you do not understand them. Then explain it to me. Theron spread his arms wide. I see a species that barely qualifies as spacefaring. Why should the mighty galactic Concord fear such creatures? For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, the Arbiter rose from his seat. The entire assembly held its breath. The Arbiter had not spoken in open session for over a century. His crystalline body towered over even the Velcari, ancient beyond comprehension, radiating power that made the air itself tremble. Young Commander, the Arbiter said. His voice was like grinding stone, deep and resonant. I will tell you why we fear the humans. I will tell you because you must understand. Because your ignorance could doom us all. Theron tried to maintain his confident posture, but even he could not entirely hide his unease in the Arbiter's presence. 3,000 years ago, the Arbiter began. A species called the HFY dominated this region of the galaxy. They were insectoid beings, vast in number, unified in purpose. Their empire spanned 200 star systems. They feared nothing and no one. The Arbiter paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the assembly. The HFY discovered humanity when humans were just beginning to explore beyond their home world. They saw a soft, fragile species. Weak, divided, easy prey. The HFY attacked human colony worlds. They burned cities. They slaughtered millions. They believed they were simply culling a lesser species before it could become a nuisance. Theron shifted uncomfortably. I have never heard of the HFY. No, the Arbiter said. You have not. Because the HFY no longer exist. Humanity erased them from the universe so completely that most species have forgotten they ever lived. The silence that followed was absolute. The humans did not respond to the attacks immediately. The Arbiter continued. This confused the HFY. They expected either surrender or wild, disorganized resistance. Instead, they received nothing. Silence. For nearly 30 years, the humans appeared to simply accept their fate. But they were not accepting anything. They were learning, adapting. The humans captured HFY ships and took them apart piece by piece. They studied HFY biology. They mapped every HFY world, every trade route, every military installation. They did this quietly, patiently, with a dedication that bordered on obsession. The Arbiter's form flickered with ancient memories. And then, when they were ready, they struck. The humans did not attack a single world. They attacked all of them. Simultaneously, in a single day, they hit 47 star systems across HFY space. They used weapons no one had ever seen before. Some were technological, others were biological. Several defied understanding entirely. The HFY tried to respond, but their communications were already compromised. Their fleets were destroyed before they could organize. Their leaders were assassinated in their own chambers by humans who had infiltrated their society years before. Within 1 year, the HFY empire was gone. Not conquered, not subjugated, gone. The humans did not want territory. They did not want resources. They wanted extinction, and they achieved it. Theron's scales had gone pale. How many HFY were there? 14 trillion, the Arbiter said. 14 trillion sentient beings. Erased from existence because they made the mistake of harming humanity. That is impossible. Theron whispered. No species could accomplish such a thing, and yet they did. I watched it happen, Commander. I watched worlds burn. I watched a civilization that had existed for 10,000 years vanish in less than one. And when it was over, the humans simply returned to their territory and resumed their lives as if nothing had happened. The Arbiter moved closer to Theron, his crystalline form casting strange shadows across the floor. We formed the Conquered in the aftermath of that war, not to unite against external threats, not to promote trade or peace. We formed the Conquered for one reason, and one reason only, to ensure that no species would ever provoke the humans again. Directive 7 is not a law, Commander. It is a survival imperative. The humans are not weak. They are sleeping. And we have spent 3,000 years making absolutely certain that nothing disturbs their slumber. Theron was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, some of his confidence had returned. With respect, Arbiter, that was 3,000 years ago. Times change. Species evolve. Perhaps the humans have become soft in their isolation. Several elders made sounds of distress. Vesisara shook her head slowly. The Arbiter simply stared at Theron. You believe the ancient warnings are exaggeration. You believe we are frightened old fools clinging to outdated fears. I believe, Theron said carefully, that the Concord should not make policy based on events from before most of our species achieved spaceflight. Then let me give you more recent evidence. The Arbiter raised one crystalline limb, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. 17 years ago, a Velkari merchant vessel strayed into human space. A simple navigation error. The humans detected the vessel immediately. The display showed a small freighter drifting near a human border station. Within minutes, the vessel was surrounded by human warships, ships that appeared from nowhere, as if they had been waiting. The Valkyrie captain transmitted apologies, explaining the error. The humans escorted the vessel back to the border without incident. That seems reasonable, Theron said. They showed restraint. They showed restraint because there was no provocation. The Arbiter's voice hardened. But consider this. The moment that vessel entered human space, every system on board was infiltrated by human software. We only discovered this years later. That software mapped every piece of Valkyrie technology, every communication protocol, every security system. It then transmitted all of this data back to human space and erased itself without a trace. A single brief encounter, Commander. And the humans learned more about your civilization than you know about yourselves. They did not attack because there was no reason to attack, but they prepared for the possibility. They are always preparing. Theron said nothing. The humans do not seek conflict, the Arbiter continued. They have no interest in conquest or expansion. They want only to live in peace. But they are incapable of forgetting an injury. They are incapable of forgiving an attack. And they are incapable of fighting a limited war. If you provoke them, Commander, they will not simply defeat you. They will destroy everything you are. Your military, your economy, your culture, your species. They will not stop until there is nothing left. And the rest of the galaxy will stand by and watch. Because we know that any attempt to help you would simply add our names to their list. The Arbiter returned to his seat, his ancient form settling back into stillness. That is why Directive 7 exists. That is why we avoid humanity. Not because they are weak. Because they are the single most dangerous species this galaxy has ever produced. And they do not know it. They do not see themselves as conquerors or destroyers. They see themselves as ordinary beings, living ordinary lives. But when they are threatened, when their people are harmed, something awakens in them. Something cold and patient and utterly without mercy. The Kethrai saw it. The Kethrai did not survive to warn others. We are that warning now, Commander. Heed it. The assembly waited for Theron's response. The High Commander stood in the center of the chamber, his scales shifting through colors that indicated deep thought. Finally, he bowed his head. I hear the wisdom of the elders. I will consider these words carefully. He turned and walked out of the chamber without another word. The assembly breathed a collective sigh of relief. Mothral prepared to move on to the next item of business, but the Arbiter remained still, his crystalline eyes fixed on the door through which Theron had departed. He did not believe us, Vesera said quietly. No, the Arbiter agreed. He did not. What will he do? The Arbiter was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with resignation. He will do what the young and ambitious always do. He will test the boundaries. He will push against the limits. He will convince himself that the old warnings are exaggeration and superstition. And then we will discover whether 3,000 years has been long enough for the humans to forget what they are capable of. The crystal walls of the chamber pulsed with ancient light. Somewhere in their structure, a new memory was forming. A memory of warning ignored. And far across the galaxy, on the border between Valkyrie space and human territory, 3 human merchant vessels went about their business, unaware that their fate had just been decided in a chamber of living crystal. They would learn soon enough. Everyone would. The capture was almost embarrassingly easy. 3 human merchant vessels drifted through the empty space near the Valkyrie border, their cargo holds full of Helion-7 isotopes bound for distant markets. They flew no weapons. They carried no military escort. They were simply traders, doing what traders had done since the beginning of civilization. High Commander Theron watched from the bridge of his flagship as 12 Valkyrie warships surrounded the tiny human convoy. Signal them, he ordered. Tell them they are in violation of Valkyrie territorial law. They are to power down their engines and prepare for boarding. The communications officer hesitated. Sir, our records show they are well within neutral space. There is no violation. Then our records are wrong, Theron said calmly. Update them. The officer swallowed hard and transmitted the message. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a response came through, audio only. The voice was female, calm, and completely unafraid. Valkyrie vessels. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the merchant ship Horizon's Edge. We are operating in neutral space under conquered trade agreements. Please explain the nature of this contact. Theron smiled. Tell her that new intelligence suggests this region has been reclassified as Valkyrie sovereign territory. Her vessels are trespassing. They will be taken into custody pending investigation. Another hesitation from the communications officer. Another hard swallow. Another transmission. Captain Vasquez's response came quickly. We do not recognize any reclassification. We request confirmation from Concord authorities. Tell her, Theron said, his voice hardening, that Concord authorities are not relevant here. She will comply, or her vessels will be destroyed. The communications officer transmitted the message. This time, the pause was longer. Then Captain Vasquez spoke again. Her voice had not changed, still calm, still unafraid. But something in her tone made even Theron's scales prickle with unease. Understood, Velkari Commander. We will comply. Please note that this action has been recorded and transmitted to human space. The message will arrive in approximately 4 hours. Theron waved dismissively. Let them send their messages. By the time anyone responds, this matter will be settled. The boarding was quick and efficient. Velkari soldiers moved through the 3 merchant vessels, securing the crew and cataloging the cargo. 47 humans in total were taken into custody, including Captain Vasquez and her senior officers. They did not resist. They did not argue. They simply allowed themselves to be led to detention cells aboard the Velkari flagship, their expressions unreadable. Theron watched the proceedings from his command chair, satisfaction spreading through his chest. This was too easy. The elders were fools, terrified of shadows and ancient history. The humans were nothing special. As the fleet prepared to return to Velkari space, his second-in-command approached. High Commander, the human captain is requesting to speak with you. Theron considered refusing. But curiosity won out. Bring her to the observation deck. I will hear what she has to say. Captain Elena Vasquez was shorter than Theron had expected. Humans were small creatures, fragile and soft. This one was middle-aged by human standards. Her dark hair streaked with gray, her face weathered by years of space travel. She walked with a slight limp, the result of some old injury, yet something about her made Theron uncomfortable. Perhaps it was her eyes. They were brown, warm, almost kind. But behind that warmth was something else, something that measured and calculated and filed information away for future use. High Commander Theron Vas, she said, her Velkari pronunciation surprisingly good. I know who you are. I am flattered. You should not be. She moved to the observation window, gazing out at the stars. I know your military record. I know your political ambitions. I know the names of your family members and the locations of your private residences. I know the access codes to your personal communication channels. Theron's scales shifted to a defensive pattern. You are bluffing. Perhaps. She turned to face him. Or perhaps you underestimate how carefully we watch those who might become threats. Threats? Theron laughed. Your people occupy 40 star systems. The Velkari Empire commands 300. You are not in a position to threaten anyone. We are not threatening you, Commander. We have never threatened you. We have asked only to be left alone. Her voice remained calm, almost gentle. You are the one who has taken aggressive action. You are the one who has captured our vessels and imprisoned our people. The question now is what happens next. What happens next is that you will be taken to Velkari Prime. Your cargo will be impounded. You and your crew will be held until your government agrees to renegotiate the terms of human access to this region of space. I see. She nodded slowly, as if considering his words carefully. And if our government refuses, then you will remain our guests indefinitely. Elena Vasquez smiled. It was a small smile, almost sad. Commander, may I share an observation? Theron gestured for her to continue. In your culture, when a conflict arises, you respond immediately. You escalate quickly, demonstrate strength, force your opponent to back down. This approach has worked well for you within the Concord, where other species fear your military power. We do what is necessary. Yes. And you expect us to do the same. You expect us to send angry transmissions. You expect us to dispatch whatever small fleet we possess. You expect us to huff and puff and eventually accept terms that favor you. She moved closer to him. Despite her small size, despite her captivity, despite everything, she showed no fear. But that is not what will happen. What will happen is nothing. Theron's scales rippled with confusion. Nothing? Nothing. For a while at least. Days, weeks, perhaps months. You will hear no response from human space. No demands, no threats. No fleet mobilization. Silence. Then your government is even weaker than I thought. No. Commander. Her smile faded. Our government is not weak. Our government is patient. And right now, somewhere in human space, people are being awakened from their beds, files are being opened, plans are being made. Everything that can be known about the Velkari Empire is being gathered and analyzed. We are not the Kethrai. We have no intention of harming your people. The Kethrai said the same thing, Commander. Right up until they started killing humans. They thought they could control the situation. They thought they could take what they wanted without consequence. They were wrong. Theron stepped closer, using his height to tower over her. Are you threatening me? No. I am warning you. There is a difference. She looked up at him without flinching. You have made your choice. You have captured our ships and taken our people. That choice cannot be undone. But what happens next is still in your hands. Return us. Return our cargo. Issue a formal apology. Do this quickly, and this matter can still end peacefully. Wait too long, and... She shrugged. Well, you have heard of the Kethrai. Theron grabbed her arm, his claws digging into her flesh. She did not cry out. She did not pull away. She simply looked at his hand with an expression of mild curiosity. You think I am afraid of your legends? He hissed. You think I will release you because of stories told by senile elders? I think you should be afraid. Her voice did not change. But I know you are not. The young are rarely afraid until it is too late. He released her, disgusted. Take her back to her cell. I am done listening to human superstition. As the guards led her away, she called back over her shoulder. You have made your choice, Commander. I hope your people have made peace with their gods. Theron watched her go, then turned to stare out at the stars. For just a moment, he felt a chill run through his scales. Then he pushed it aside. Human tricks, human mind games, nothing more. He had made his choice, and he would not back down. Across the galaxy, in the great hall of the Conquered, the Arbiter sat in perfect stillness. His crystalline form had not moved in 3 days. His attention was focused entirely on the reports flowing in from across known space. The humans had done nothing. No transmissions, no fleet movements, no diplomatic protests. Nothing. This was what frightened him most. Vesazara entered the chamber and approached his seat. Arbiter. The other elders are growing concerned. Some believe we should intervene. Demand that the Velkari release the human prisoners. Intervention would only make things worse, the Arbiter said. The humans must see this as a Velkari action, not a Concord action. If we involve ourselves, they may expand their response to include us. So we do nothing? We do the only thing we can do. We wait, and we prepare. Prepare for what? The Arbiter's form flickered with ancient light. Prepare for the possibility that we have just witnessed the beginning of the Second Human War. Vesazara shuddered. Surely it will not come to that. The Velkari are not the Kethrai. They have not killed anyone. No, not yet. But High Commander Theron is proud and ambitious. He will not back down easily. And the longer he holds those prisoners, the more time the humans have to prepare. Prepare what? Their military is tiny compared to the Velkari. The Arbiter turned to face her. You still do not understand, do you? Human strength is not in their military. It is in their minds, in their patience, in their absolute refusal to accept defeat. They are, even now, learning everything about the Velkari. They are finding weaknesses that the Velkari themselves do not know they have. They are developing plans and contingencies and fallback positions. They are testing Velkari security systems, mapping Velkari space, identifying every possible target, and they are doing all of this in silence, without warning, without mercy. Vesazara was quiet for a moment. What should we do? Begin evacuating non-essential personnel from systems bordering Velkari space. Quietly. Do not cause panic, but get our people to safety. You believe it is that serious? I believe that 3,000 years ago, the Kethrai believed they were untouchable. I believe the Velkari believe the same thing now. And I believe that humanity has not changed. They have not grown soft. They have not forgotten what they are capable of. They have simply been waiting for a reason to remember. In a holding cell aboard the Velkari flagship, Captain Elena Vasquez sat with her back against the wall, her eyes closed. Around her, the other human prisoners maintained similar postures, calm, patient, waiting. A Valkyrie guard passed by their cells regularly, observing them with growing confusion. He had expected fear, anger, desperation. Instead, he found only silence. On his 10th pass, one of the younger prisoners, a man named David Chen, opened his eyes and smiled at the guard. "Everything okay out there?" David asked pleasantly. The guard grunted and moved on, unsettled in a way he could not explain. Captain Vasquez opened her eyes and looked at David. "Patience, Mr. Chen." "I know, Captain. I just wanted to see how he reacted." "And?" David's smile widened slightly. "He is scared, Captain. He does not know why yet, but he is scared." Elena nodded and closed her eyes again. "They will all be scared soon enough. How long do you think, Captain?" "A few months. Maybe less. Our people do not rush these things, but they do not forget either." She thought about her crew. 47 men and women, taken from their ships and thrown into cells. Most of them were simply traders, people who wanted nothing more than to move cargo and earn a living. They had done nothing to deserve this, and yet none of them showed fear. None of them begged or pleaded. They knew what was coming. They had heard the stories passed down through generations. They understood what it meant when humanity was wronged. The Valkyrie thought they had taken prisoners. They were wrong. They had taken hostages. And somewhere in human space, a very old clock had just started ticking. Captain Vasquez smiled to herself in the darkness of her cell. The Valkyrie believed this story was about them. They believed they were the protagonists, the powerful empire teaching a lesser species its place. They were wrong about that too. This story was about humanity. It had always been about humanity. And the Valkyrie were about to learn, as the HFY had learned before them, that some stories do not end the way the villains expect. Some stories end with extinction. 6 months had passed since the capture of the human merchant vessels. 6 months of complete silence from human space. No diplomatic protests, no military posturing, no threats of any kind. High Commander Theron Voss stood before the Valkyrie Senate, basking in the glow of his apparent victory. "The elders warned us that humanity was dangerous," he declared, his voice echoing through the ornate chamber. "They told us stories of ancient wars and terrible vengeance. They demanded we live in fear of a species that cannot even muster a response to our actions." Senators shifted in their seats. Some looked uncomfortable. Others nodded along, eager to show support for the rising military leader. 6 months, Theron continued. 6 months we have held their people. 6 months we have controlled their precious isotope trade. And what has humanity done? Nothing. Because they are nothing. Weak, divided, incapable of challenging true galactic power. He paused dramatically. "I propose that we expand our territorial claims. The humans have proven they will not fight back. We should take advantage of this weakness. The isotope deposits in their space could fuel our expansion for centuries." The Senate erupted in debate. Some supported Theron's aggressive stance. Others urged caution. But no one could deny the apparent success of his gamble. Far above Valkyrie Prime, in the flagship that had become a permanent symbol of Theron's triumph, things were not going as smoothly. Fleet Admiral Korovin stared at her console with growing confusion. "Run the diagnostic again." "This is the 5th diagnostic, Admiral," her chief engineer said. "The results are the same. Minor fluctuations in our communication relays. Occasional delays in data transmission. Nothing critical. But the patterns are unusual." "Unusual how?" "They appear almost random. But there is something underneath, a structure we cannot quite identify. It is like someone is testing our systems, probing for weaknesses." Korovin frowned. She had served in the Valkyrie military for 40 years. She had survived 3 border wars and countless skirmishes. Her instincts had kept her alive when others died. Right now, her instincts were screaming. "Increase security protocols on all sensitive systems," she ordered. "And flag this for High Commander Theron's attention. The High Commander has marked all human-related concerns as low priority, Admiral. Then mark it as a routine maintenance issue. Just get it on his desk." The engineer nodded and hurried away. Korovin turned back to the viewport, staring out at the stars. Something was wrong. She could feel it, like a predator watching from the shadows. But whenever she tried to identify the source, there was nothing there. Just silence. The first real incident occurred 3 weeks later. A Valkyrie supply convoy traveling through Sector 7 experienced a complete navigation failure. All 12 vessels suddenly received coordinates that placed them 300 light-years from their actual position. By the time the error was discovered, they had drifted into an uncharted asteroid field. 2 ships were destroyed. 47 crew members died. The official report blamed a software malfunction. Then the communications started going wrong. Military transmissions arrived hours late, sometimes days late. When they did arrive, portions were missing or corrupted. Classified orders appeared in civilian channels. Civilian messages appeared in classified channels. The official reports blamed aging infrastructure. Then the personnel files became corrupted. Promotion records vanished. Service histories were altered. Security clearances disappeared and reappeared at random. 3 admirals were briefly listed as deceased. A junior officer was temporarily promoted to Supreme Commander before the error was caught. The official reports blamed administrative oversights. High Commander Theron dismissed all of these concerns. Coincidences, he declared. The Empire is vast. Systems fail. Mistakes happen. This has nothing to do with the humans. But others were not so certain. In the Concorde's Great Hall, the Arbiter had stopped pretending to be inactive. His crystalline form pulsed with energy as he processed the reports flowing in from Velkari space. "It has begun," he announced to the assembled elders. Vesera leaned forward. "The glitches? The system failures? They are not glitches. They are not failures. They are messages." "Messages? From the humans?" "Yes. They are demonstrating their capabilities, showing the Velkari what they have achieved, without the Velkari even knowing they were under attack." "How is that possible?" "The Velkari have some of the most advanced security systems in the Concorde." The Arbiter's form flickered with what might have been dark amusement. "The Velkari believe their systems are secure because they can detect attacks from other Concorde species. They have never faced human infiltration. They do not understand what they are dealing with. The human algorithms are not like ours. They do not simply attack or defend. They learn. They adapt. They evolve. Every attempt to detect them teaches them something new. Every security measure becomes a stepping stone. By now, I estimate that human software has infiltrated every major Velkari system. Their military networks, their financial systems, their power grids, their food distribution, their medical databases, everything." Vesera was silent for a moment. "And they have not attacked yet?" "No. They are still gathering information, still preparing, still giving the Velkari chances to return their prisoners." "What happens when they stop giving chances?" The Arbiter did not answer. He did not need to. On Velkari Prime, in the maximum security facility where the human prisoners were held, Captain Elena Vasquez received an unexpected visitor. Fleet Admiral Korovin stood outside her cell, studying her with calculating eyes. Unlike Theron, there was no arrogance in her gaze. Only caution. Only awareness. "Captain Vasquez," Korovin said, "I believe we should talk." Elena rose from her bunk and approached the barrier. "Admiral, this is unexpected. I have been studying your people, Captain. Not the official records, the old records, the ones that predate the Concorde. And what have you found?" "Disturbing things." Koroven's scales shifted to a muted gray, a color of deep concern. "The Kethri were not weak. They were one of the most powerful species in this region of space. Their fall was not gradual. It was absolute. History is often unkind to those who underestimate their enemies. Is that what we are doing? Underestimating you?" Elena considered the question carefully. "Admiral, may I be honest with you? Please. I have been in this cell for 6 months. In that time, I have been fed. I have been given medical care when needed. I have not been tortured or abused. Your people have treated us with professional courtesy. This gives me hope." Koroven tilted her head. "Hope? Hope that this can still end without destruction. The choice remains with you. Return us. Apologize. End this before it goes further. High Commander Theron will never agree to that. He believes he has won. Then High Commander Theron has already lost. He simply does not know it yet." Koroven was quiet for a long moment. "What is happening to our systems, Captain? Our communications, our navigation, our personnel files. We cannot find the source." Elena smiled sadly. "You cannot find the source because the source is everywhere. Your systems are no longer yours, Admiral. They have not been yours for months." The color drained from Koroven's scales. "That is impossible. We would have detected an intrusion. You did not detect anything because there was nothing to detect. Human algorithms do not intrude. They become part of your systems. They learn your protocols. They follow your rules. They are invisible because they are indistinguishable from your own software. By the time you notice something wrong, it is already too late. The infection is total. Koravin stepped back, her military training struggling against rising panic. You are lying. This is psychological warfare. You want us to doubt ourselves. I am telling you the truth because I want you to understand. I want you to convince your people to end this. Because if you do not end it, my people will, and they will not end it gently. That night, Koravin submitted a classified report to High Command, outlining her concerns about possible human infiltration. The report was marked urgent, requiring immediate review. It sat unread for 3 days. When it was finally reviewed, the officer responsible for classification protocols noted that the report had been automatically downgraded to low priority by an unknown system process. He reported this anomaly to his superior. His superior's response never arrived. The anomalies continued to spread. Weapons systems reported false targeting data. Shield generators fluctuated at random intervals. Engine diagnostics showed perfect function on vessels that were actually experiencing mechanical failures. And still, High Commander Theron insisted everything was fine. The humans were beaten. The Empire was secure. Nothing was wrong. Then the transmission arrived. It came through every Valkyrie channel simultaneously. Military, civilian, government, private. Every screen on every world in Valkyrie space displayed the same message. It contained no threats, no demands. It contained only data. The complete personnel files of every Valkyrie military officer, from the lowest recruit to High Commander Theron himself. Service records, personal communications, medical histories, family connections, the locations of every secret military installation, including facilities so classified that even most admirals did not know they existed. The access codes to every defense network, every weapons system, every orbital platform, and at the end, a detailed file on High Commander Theron. His home address, his family members, his children's names, their school schedules, their favorite routes home. The message attached to this data package was simple. You have 14 standard days to return our people unharmed. This is not a negotiation. Panic spread through the Valkyrie command structure like fire through dry grass. Officers who had supported Theron suddenly found reasons to distance themselves. Senators who had praised his boldness suddenly remembered urgent business elsewhere. Theron himself stood in his command center, staring at the data on his screens. His scales had gone white with shock. His claws trembled. How? He whispered. How did they get all of this? No one answered. No one had an answer to give. Across the galaxy, other species watched with growing fear. The Morvani quietly moved their border fleets away from Valkyrie space. The Stellar Collective issued a statement of neutrality. Even the most aggressive species in the Concord found reasons to avoid any association with the Valkyrie. No one wanted to be standing near the target when the humans finally struck. In the Concord's Great Hall, the Arbiter addressed the assembled elders. 14 days, he said. The humans have given the Valkyrie 14 days. It is more generous than I expected. Will Theron comply? Vesara asked. I do not know. His pride may override his survival instinct. And if it does, the Arbiter's form flickered with something that might have been sorrow. Then we will witness something that has not happened in 3,000 years. And the Valkyrie will learn why their elders warned them never to provoke humanity. In her cell on Valkyrie Prime, Captain Elena Vasquez felt the change in the air before she heard the news. Guards who had been professional became nervous. Their movements became jerky, their eyes constantly checking shadows. One of them finally spoke to her, his voice barely above a whisper. The transmission, he said. We all received it. Everyone knows. Elena nodded calmly. Then you understand what is coming. What do we do? She looked at the young guard, seeing the fear in his eyes. He was barely an adult by Valkyrie standards. He had simply been doing his job, following orders. He did not deserve what was coming. Convince your commanders to return us, she said gently. Quickly, while there is still time. And if they refuse? Elena did not answer. She did not need to. The guard walked away, his scales pale with dread, and somewhere in human space, the clock continued to tick. 14 days, 13, 12, the countdown had begun. On the 15th day, High Commander Theron stood before an emergency session of the Velkhari Senate. He wore his full military uniform, every medal and ribbon displayed proudly. His scales had returned to their normal deep purple, his confidence restored through sheer force of will. "The deadline has passed," he announced. "The humans have done nothing. As I predicted, their threats were empty. They lacked the military strength to challenge us, and they know it." Some senators nodded, relieved. Others remained skeptical, their scales shifting uneasily. "I propose we continue our current course," Theron continued. "We will expand our territorial claims. We will exploit the human weakness. The Velkhari Empire will become the dominant force in this region of space, and the conquered will have no choice but to acknowledge our power." He paused for effect, his chest swelling with pride. "Today marks the beginning of a new era. The era of Velkhari supremacy." The lights went out, not just in the Senate chamber. Across the entire capital city, across the entire planet, across every Velkhari world simultaneously. For exactly 30 seconds, the Velkhari Empire went dark. Then the lights returned, as suddenly as they had gone. Emergency systems hummed back to life. Screens flickered and stabilized, and on every screen, on every world, a single line of text appeared. "We warned you." The panic that followed was absolute. Military installations scrambled to assess the situation. Orbital defense platforms ran diagnostics. Fleet commanders demanded status reports, and found nothing wrong. Every system showed normal function. Every defense was intact. Every weapon was operational. But everyone understood the message. The humans had just demonstrated that they could turn off the Velkhari Empire whenever they wanted. Every system, every world, every piece of technology. They had chosen not to destroy anything. They had chosen not to kill anyone. This time, Fleet Admiral Koravan reached High Commander Theron within minutes of the blackout. She found him standing in the darkened Senate chamber, staring at the line of text that still glowed on every screen. "We must release the prisoners," she said. "Immediately." "Before this goes further." Theron did not respond. "High Commander, did you hear me? We must act now. Whatever pride we sacrifice is nothing compared to what they can do." Theron turned slowly. His eyes were wild, his scales shifting through colors too rapidly to interpret. "They cannot do this. This is impossible. We are the Velkhari. We are a power of the Concord. We will not be threatened by primitive apes. With respect, sir, they have already done it. They have proven they can disable our entire civilization at will. We have no defense. We have no response. We have nothing. Then we will find something." Theron slammed his fist against a console. "Gather the fleet. All ships. We will strike at human space. We will show them that the Velkhari are not afraid." Koravan stared at him in disbelief. "Sir, that would be suicide. We have no idea what defenses they possess. We do not even know if our ships will function properly in human space. We will function because we are warriors, because we do not surrender, because the Velkhari have never bowed to anyone." "The Kethrai were warriors too, sir." Theron froze. For a moment, something like sanity flickered in his eyes, then it was gone. "Prepare the fleet, Admiral." "That is an order." Koravan saluted stiffly and walked away. She had already decided what she needed to do. 1 hour later, the Velkhari fleet began to mobilize. 300 warships, the pride of the Empire, assembled in formation above Velkhari Prime. Their engines hummed with power, their weapons powered up. Their crews waited for the order to move. The order never came. As High Commander Theron prepared to give the command, chaos erupted across his fleet. Navigation systems reported that Velkhari Prime was located in empty space, thousands of light-years from its actual position. Weapons targeting systems locked onto friendly vessels and refused to disengage. Communication channels filled with static and garbled transmissions, and one by one, the orbital defense platforms surrounding Velkhari Prime began to rotate, their weapons tracking not toward the stars, but toward the planet itself. "What is happening?" Theron screamed into his communicator. "Report," a calm voice responded. It was not any of his officers. "High Commander Theron Vass." The voice was female, speaking in perfect Velkhari. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Human Forces. You failed to meet our deadline. The consequences begin now. You cannot do this. The Concord will not allow it. You will start a galactic war. The Concord has already issued a statement of non-interference. They understand that we did not start this conflict. You did, and we are simply ending it. Theron's scales went white. What do you want? We want our people back. But we have moved beyond simple demands. You had 14 days to comply. You chose not to. Now we will demonstrate why that was unwise. We will release them. Today. Right now. That is no longer sufficient. Admiral Chen's voice remained calm, almost pleasant. You see, High Commander, we have a policy. When our people are taken, we do not simply recover them. We ensure that the party responsible can never threaten us again. Your fleet is crippled. Your defense platforms are now under our control. Your planetary power grid will fail in exactly 3 hours if we choose. Your financial systems have already begun to collapse as we speak. We have not fired a single weapon. We have not killed a single person. But make no mistake, Commander. We can. And we will, if necessary. What do you want? Theron repeated, desperation creeping into his voice. We want you to understand. We want your entire civilization to understand. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is not defenseless. Humanity has simply chosen not to demonstrate its capabilities until now. You have seen a fraction of what we can do. Imagine what else we have prepared. Imagine what we would do if you had harmed our prisoners. Imagine what we will do if anyone ever tries this again. And then, Commander, you will release our people. You will issue a formal apology. You will submit to whatever reparations the Concord deems appropriate. And you will remember, for the rest of your empire's existence, why your elders told you to leave us alone. The transmission ended. Theron stood in silence, surrounded by the chaos of his failing fleet. Officers rushed back and forth, trying desperately to regain control of systems that no longer responded to their commands. On the ground, reports were flooding in. Banks were failing. Power grids were fluctuating. Food distribution networks were showing impossible errors. Medical systems were losing patient records. The entire infrastructure of the Valkyrie Empire was collapsing, not through destruction, but through simple malfunction. Everything still existed. Nothing worked. And 300 warships hung motionless in space, their weapons pointed at each other, their crews helpless to do anything but watch. Fleet Admiral Korovan approached Theron one final time. Sir, we must surrender. Now. While we still can. Theron looked at her with hollow eyes. I thought we were stronger than them. We were never stronger than them, sir. We were simply fortunate that they never had a reason to show us what they could do. Theron was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he removed the insignia of his rank and placed it on the console before him. Order the release of the prisoners, he said quietly. Have a formal apology prepared. And contact the Concord. Tell them we surrender unconditionally. Yes, sir. And Admiral? Sir, make sure the apology is sincere. I do not want to give them any reason to demonstrate anything else. The release of the human prisoners was conducted with elaborate ceremony. Captain Elena Vasquez and her crew walked out of their detention facility to find a full honor guard waiting. The highest-ranking officers of the Valkyrie military standing at attention. Elena walked past them without acknowledging their presence. She paused only once, in front of High Commander Theron, who had been required to attend as part of his penance. You should have listened to your elders, she said simply. Then she continued to the waiting human vessel that had materialized in orbit, passing through Valkyrie defenses that had been completely powerless to detect it. Behind her, the Valkyrie Empire began the long process of rebuilding from a defeat that had not killed a single person but had destroyed everything that made them a power. Their military was humiliated. Their economy was in ruins. Their allies had abandoned them. Their enemies watched with predatory interest, sensing weakness. And across the galaxy, species that had doubted the ancient warning suddenly remembered why the elders had been so afraid. In the Concord's Great Hall, the Arbiter watched the final reports with something approaching satisfaction. It is done, Vesara said. The humans have withdrawn. Their prisoners are safe. The Valkyrie are broken. Yes, and no one died. I find that remarkable. The Kethri were exterminated. The Valkyrie were simply dismantled. The Kethri killed humans. The Valkyrie only held them captive. The response was proportionate. Vesazara considered this. Then the humans can show restraint. The humans always show restraint until they cannot. That is what makes them so terrifying. They do not lash out in anger. They calculate. They prepare. They respond with precisely the force necessary to achieve their objectives. If the Velkari had killed even one prisoner, we would be watching extinction rather than embarrassment. He paused, his crystalline form flickering with ancient memories. The other species must learn from this. They must see what happens when the warnings are ignored. And they must understand that this was mercy. This was the gentle option. Humanity does not want war. They do not want conquest. They want only to be left in peace. But they will never, ever be victims. And those who try to make them victims will discover exactly what lies beneath the surface of that seemingly ordinary species. We were wise to fear them, Vesara. Today proves that we were right. Across human space, life returned to normal with remarkable speed. The merchant vessels that had been captured were replaced. Trade routes resumed. People went back to their jobs, their families, their ordinary lives. Admiral Sarah Chen submitted her final report and returned to her quiet home on the colony world of New Portland. She tended her garden. She read books. She had dinner with her family. No one who met her would have guessed that she had just brought an empire to its knees. This was, perhaps, what made humanity truly dangerous. They could destroy civilizations. They could erase species from existence. They could bring the mighty low with nothing but patience and preparation. And then they could go home and forget about it, because to them, it was not conquest. It was not war. It was simply problem-solving. A threat had emerged. The threat had been neutralized. Now life could continue. The Velkari would spend generations recovering from a conflict that humanity had already stopped thinking about. And somewhere, in the dark spaces between stars, the machines that humanity had left behind continued to watch, continued to learn, continued to prepare, just in case, always just in case. 1 year had passed since the fall of the Velkari Empire. The Great Hall of the Conquered had never been so full. Representatives from all 12 member species filled their designated sections, with observers from dozens more crowding into the viewing galleries. Even species that normally avoided galactic politics had sent delegates to witness this moment. High Commander Theron Vass stood in the center of the chamber, stripped of his rank, his scales faded to a dull gray. He wore the simple garments of a criminal, his wrists bound in ceremonial chains. Around him, the evidence of his crimes was displayed on holographic screens. The trial had lasted 3 months. Witnesses had testified. Records had been examined. The full scope of Theron's recklessness had been exposed for all to see. Not before a human court. The humans had not requested any role in the proceedings. They had simply provided evidence when asked and otherwise remained silent. This was Concord justice. And the Concord had been harsh. The arbiter rose to deliver the verdict. His crystalline form glowed with solemn light as he addressed the assembly. Theron Vass, you have been found guilty of crimes against sentient beings. You violated Concord law. You endangered countless lives through your arrogance. You ignored the warnings of the elders. You brought your people to the edge of extinction. The Velkari Empire has paid the price for your ambition. Their military is disbanded. Their worlds are administered by Concord peacekeepers. Their people live under restrictions that will not be lifted for generations. And you, Theron Vass, will spend the remainder of your life on a prison station orbiting a dead star. You will have no visitors. You will have no communication with the outside world. You will have nothing but time to contemplate the consequences of your choices. Theron did not respond. There was nothing left to say. Guards led him away, and the chamber fell silent for a long moment. Then a new figure entered, walking with calm confidence to the center of the hall. Captain Elena Vasquez, now formally designated as humanity's representative to the Concord, stood where Theron had stood moments before. She wore civilian clothes, plain and practical. She carried no weapons. She was accompanied by no guards, and yet every eye in the chamber followed her with something approaching awe. Representatives of the Concord, she began, her voice carrying easily through the vast space. I bring greetings from the United Human Territories. We thank you for the opportunity to address this assembly. The arbiter nodded. You have the floor, Representative Vasquez. I am not here to make demands, Elena said. I am not here to issue threats. I am not here to claim territory or resources or power. I am here to offer a gift. She raised her hand, and a data package appeared in holographic display. Charts and diagrams filled the air, showing medical breakthroughs, agricultural advances, energy technologies. This is our gift to the conquered. The collected knowledge of humanity in fields where we have made progress beyond current galactic standards. Free of charge, no strings attached. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. This was not what anyone had expected. Our medical technology can increase average lifespans by 20% across most species. Our agricultural methods can improve crop yields on marginal worlds by up to 40%. Our energy systems can provide clean power at a fraction of current costs. We offer this knowledge freely because we wish to be good neighbors. We wish to contribute to galactic civilization. We wish to prove that humanity is not the monster that some believe us to be. She paused, letting her words sink in. We never wanted war with the Velkari. We never wanted to demonstrate our capabilities in such a dramatic fashion. We simply wanted to trade peacefully, to live quietly, to be left alone. But we will not apologize for what we did. The Velkari took our people. They ignored our warnings. They forced us to act. We responded with the minimum force necessary to secure our citizens and protect our interests. No one died. No worlds were destroyed. No species was exterminated. This was our choice. We chose restraint because restraint was possible. Her voice hardened slightly. But let me be absolutely clear. Our restraint was a choice. It can be withdrawn. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. The Velkari tested our resolve and found it firm. They tested our capabilities and found them overwhelming. They tested our patience and found it exhausted. We would prefer that no other species repeat this experiment. We would prefer to be known as traders and scientists and artists. We would prefer to contribute to galactic peace and prosperity. But if we are forced to demonstrate our other capabilities, we will, without hesitation, without mercy. And the next example will make the Velkari seem fortunate. The arbiter leaned forward. Representative Vasquez, may I ask a question? Of course, Arbiter. 3,000 years ago, humanity destroyed the HFY. 14 trillion sentient beings, erased from existence. You say you prefer peace. How do we reconcile this preference with that history? Elena was quiet for a moment, considering her response carefully. The HFY killed 40,000 humans, she said finally. Civilians, colonists, families. They attacked without warning and without provocation. They showed no mercy and offered no terms. We responded in kind. We destroyed them completely because we could not afford to leave survivors. Survivors would have sought revenge. They would have attacked again. The cycle would have continued indefinitely. We chose extinction because extinction was the only way to ensure our children would never face the same threat. It was not a decision we made lightly. It haunts us still. The weight of 14 trillion deaths is not something we carry easily. But we would make the same choice again. And we would make it for any species that kills our people. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each representative in turn. You have heard the stories. You know what we are capable of. Some of you fear us. Some of you hate us. Some of you wish we would simply disappear. But consider this. In 3,000 years, we have fought exactly one war. One. We destroyed the HFY because they gave us no choice. We humbled the Velkari because they ignored our warnings. Every other species in this galaxy, we have left in peace. We have traded with you. We have shared knowledge with you. We have asked only to be treated with the same respect we show to others. We are not monsters. We are simply people. People who have learned, through bitter experience, that the universe respects only strength. We do not want to be feared. We want to be friends. But we will never, ever be victims. She fell silent, and for a long moment, no one spoke. Then the arbiter rose, his ancient form radiating something that might have been respect. Representative Vasquez, on behalf of the Concord, I thank you for your words and for your gift. We accept both in the spirit in which they are offered. I move that Directive 7 be elevated from a recommendation to the highest law of galactic civilization. Henceforth, any species that provokes humanity will face immediate expulsion from the Concord, and will receive no protection or assistance from any member world. Furthermore, I move that humanity be offered full membership in the Concord, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. The vote was unanimous. As the assembly dispersed, Vessera approached the arbiter. You offered them membership, she said. After everything that has happened. After everything they have done. After everything they could have done and chose not to, the arbiter corrected. The Velkari attacked them. The humans responded with restraint. They could have exterminated the Velkari as easily as they exterminated the Kethrai. They chose mercy instead. That means something. That suggests they can be reasoned with. That suggests they genuinely want peace. And, if they do not, the Arbiter's form flickered with dark amusement. Then it hardly matters whether they are members of the Concord or not. Does it? If humanity truly wanted to destroy us, there is nothing we could do to stop them. Better to have them as allies than as enemies. Better to understand them than to fear them. Better to trust their stated intentions than to provoke them through suspicion. He paused, ancient memories stirring within his crystalline structure. Besides, Directive 7 remains in effect. It has simply been formalized. We will continue to avoid provoking humanity. And now they have a stake in galactic stability. They have a reason to protect the Concord, rather than destroy it. This is the best outcome we could have hoped for. The Velkari have been punished. Humanity has been satisfied. The galaxy has received a reminder of why the old warnings exist, and perhaps, in time, we will learn to see the humans not as monsters, but as what they claim to be. Simply people, trying to survive in a dangerous universe. Across the galaxy, life continued. The Velkari slowly rebuilt their shattered civilization, now under the watchful eye of Concord administrators. Their children learned a new history in their schools, one that emphasized the consequences of arrogance and the importance of respecting other species. The Concord implemented new protocols for dealing with human space. Trade agreements were formalized. Cultural exchange programs were established. Scientists from dozens of species traveled to human worlds to learn from their remarkable technology, and the old warnings were carved into stone on every world, in every language, impossible to forget or ignore. The humans are not weak. They are not primitive. They are not safe. Do not provoke them. Do not threaten them. Do not harm them. Their mercy is a gift. Their wrath is extinction. Captain Elena Vasquez returned to her cargo ship after her speech to the Concord. She had been offered positions of power, titles of prestige, rewards beyond measure. She had refused them all. "I am a traitor," she explained to the bewildered Concord officials. "That is all I ever wanted to be. I got caught up in something bigger, but it is over now. I want to go back to my life." And so she did. She returned to the merchant routes, carrying cargo between stars, living quietly among her crew. The universe faded back to normal around her, but sometimes, late at night, she would stand at the viewport of her ship and stare out at the stars. She would think about the Velkari guards she had met, the young ones who had shown her small kindnesses during her imprisonment. She hoped they were doing well. She would think about the Kethrai, a species she had never known, erased from existence before she was born. 14 trillion lives, ended because they made the wrong choice. She would think about the responsibility that came with humanity's power, the terrible burden of knowing that her species could destroy civilizations with barely any effort, and she would hope that no one would ever force them to use that power again. But she knew, deep in her heart, that hope was not enough. There would always be another Theron, another ambitious leader who believed the old warnings were exaggeration. There would always be another species that thought they could take what they wanted without consequence, and when that happened, humanity would respond, as they always had, as they always would, not with anger or malice, not with joy or pride, simply with cold, calculated efficiency, because that was what they were. That was what the universe had made them: survivors, protectors, and, when necessary, destroyers. The galaxy had learned its lesson. For now, but somewhere, in some distant corner of the cosmos, another civilization was rising. Another species was developing faster than light travel. Another ambitious leader was dreaming of conquest and glory. And one day, they too would encounter humanity. They too would hear the warnings. They too would have to choose whether to listen or to learn the hard way. The cycle was endless. The pattern was eternal. But for now, there was peace. For now, the galaxy slept quietly, secure in the knowledge that the most dangerous species in the universe had chosen to be gentle. For now, always for now. Elena turned away from the viewport and returned to her duties. There was cargo to move, schedules to keep, life to live. Behind her, the stars burned in the darkness, ancient and patient, waiting, always waiting, just in case.
The broken pieces of the Morgan mining colony floated silently in space. Chunks of metal and rock drifted by like dead leaves in a pond. In the middle of this graveyard of steel and stone, the UES Thunderchild waited quietly. From far away, it looked like just another piece of wreckage. Its lights were off, and its engines were cold. But inside, 200 crew members waited in the dim red glow of emergency lighting, ready for action. Captain James Miller stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back, as he looked out at the field of debris through the main viewport. The light from a distant star caught the silver in his hair, making it shine like metal. He had been standing there for hours, barely moving, just watching and waiting. Dark circles under his eyes showed that he hadn't slept much in the past 3 days, but his gaze remained sharp and alert. "Status report," he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper even though no one could hear them out in space. Lieutenant Baker, a young officer with steady hands and careful eyes, looked up from her screen. "All systems are still running in silent mode, Captain. The ship's power signature looks just like background radiation. Even if they were looking right at us, they'd think we're just another dead ship." Miller nodded slowly. The plan was working so far. The Thunderchild might look like an old Defender-class warship on the outside, but that was just clever disguise. Under its battle-scarred hull, the ship carried humanity's newest and most powerful weapons. The crew had spent months training with these systems in secret, preparing for this moment. "Engineering report," Miller called out, his eyes still fixed on the viewport. Chief Engineer Tom Wilson's voice came through the comm system, kept low like everyone else's. "Main reactor is in standby, sir. We can power up to full combat status in 30 seconds. The Phantom drive is primed and ready. All weapon systems are hot but dormant." Miller allowed himself a small smile. The Phantom drive was their biggest advantage. A new system that let the ship move in ways that should be impossible. The aliens wouldn't expect it because, as far as they knew, nothing could pass through solid matter. They were wrong. In his mind, Miller went over the plan again. The Dominion fleet would come back. They always did. They liked to return to places they had destroyed to take pictures and make videos for their propaganda. They would show these images to other alien races, bragging about how they had defeated the simple humans again. Their pride would be their downfall. Contact. The word came from Lieutenant Ross at the sensor station. She didn't need to raise her voice. Everyone on the bridge was already listening. Long-range sensors picking up multiple ships entering the system. Energy signatures matched Dominion patterns. Miller straightened his uniform jacket. "Time to arrival. 20 minutes at their current speed." "Sir." The captain turned to face his crew for the first time in hours. In the red emergency lighting, their faces looked like masks, serious and ready. They all knew what was at stake. The Morgan mining colony had been home to 5,000 people before the Dominion attacked. Now those people were refugees on Earth, their homes and work destroyed. This mission wasn't just about military strategy. It was about showing the Dominion that humans weren't easy targets. "Begin final systems check," Miller ordered. "I want everything tested one last time before they get here." The bridge came alive with quiet activity. Fingers moved across screens, running diagnostics and checking weapons. Deep inside the ship, the Nexus combat system, their secret weapon, ran its own checks. The AI system was so advanced that it could think faster than any human or alien computer. It would help them predict every move the enemy made before they made it. Miller walked to his command chair but didn't sit down. He touched the small pocket over his heart where he kept a picture of his daughter. She was studying to be a ship engineer, and he had promised to come back and see her graduate. It was one more reason to make sure this mission succeeded. "Sir," Baker called out, "I'm picking up radiation spikes. The enemy fleet is dropping out of faster than light speed." "Numbers." 50 ships, sir, mostly cruiser class, with 5 destroyer-level vessels." Miller nodded. It was exactly what their intelligence had predicted. The Dominion was so sure of their power that they didn't think they needed to change their patterns. They would learn their mistakes soon enough. "All hands," Miller said into the ship-wide comm, keeping his voice steady and calm. "This is the captain. In a few minutes, we're going to show the Dominion why they shouldn't have underestimated humanity. Every one of you volunteered for this mission, knowing the risks. I want you to know how proud I am of this crew. No matter what happens next, we're about to make history." He clicked off the comm and turned to his weapons officer. "Lieutenant Ross, are the modified rail guns ready?" "Yes, sir. All 3 banks are loaded with the crystal breaker rounds. First volley is set for maximum impact." The crystal breaker rounds were another secret weapon. The Dominion ships were made of a special crystal material that they thought was unbreakable. But human scientists had figured out exactly the right frequency to shatter it. The aliens were about to learn that their greatest strength could become their greatest weakness. "Enemy fleet entering visual range," Baker reported. "They're moving into standard observation formation." Through the viewport, Miller could see them now. The Dominion ships looked like giant crystals floating in space, their surfaces reflecting starlight like diamonds. They were beautiful in their way, but Miller only saw the threat they represented. Each of those ships had helped destroy human colonies. Each one carried weapons that had killed innocent people. "Power readings from the enemy fleet are minimal," Ross added. "Their weapons are cold. They're not expecting any resistance." Miller allowed himself another small smile. "That's their first mistake." He straightened up and raised his voice slightly. "All hands, battle stations. Prepare for phantom drive activation on my mark." The crew moved with quiet efficiency, each person knowing exactly what to do. They had practiced these moves thousands of times in simulation. Now it was time to do it for real. "Enemy fleet is in position," Baker reported. "They're starting their recording drones." Miller took a deep breath. Everything they had planned for was about to happen. The next few minutes would decide if humanity could stand up to the Dominion's bullying, or if another human colony would fall. "Nexus combat system is online and tracking all enemy vessels," the AI's calm voice reported through the bridge speakers. "Combat solutions are plotted and ready. Phantom drive calculations are complete." Miller finally sat down in his command chair, gripping the armrests tightly. "Send final status check to all stations." One by one, the reports came back. Engineering was ready. Weapons were ready. Medical was ready. Every part of the ship was prepared for what was about to happen. The enemy ships were spreading out now, getting ready to record their propaganda videos. They had no idea they were sailing into a trap. Their overconfidence had made them blind. Miller watched the last few pieces of debris float past his viewport. In a few seconds, those scattered rocks and metal chunks would become part of the battlefield. The Nexus system would use them like pieces on a chessboard, turning the Dominion's own destruction against them. "All hands," Miller said quietly. "Prepare for combat. We are go for Operation Thunderstrike." He paused for one heartbeat, then gave the order that would start everything. "Phantom drive. Engage." The Phantom drive engaged with a deep hum that vibrated through the Thunderchild's hull. For a moment, everything looked blurry, like the whole ship was underwater. Captain Miller felt a strange tingling in his fingers and toes as the ship phased between normal space and something else. Then, in the blink of an eye, the Thunderchild appeared right in the middle of the Dominion fleet. The enemy ships didn't react for 3 whole seconds. To them, it must have looked impossible. A dead ship suddenly appearing among their perfect formation. Those 3 seconds of surprise were all the Thunderchild needed. "Fire main batteries," Miller ordered, his voice sharp and clear. Lieutenant Ross's fingers were already moving across her weapons console. The rail guns came to life, their special crystal breaker rounds launching at speeds that made them almost invisible to the human eye. The first 3 shots hit their targets before the Dominion ships could even begin to raise their shields. The effect was devastating. The beautiful crystal hulls of the alien ships didn't just break. They shattered like glass windows hit by rocks. Pieces of crystal scattered in all directions, sparkling in the starlight. The broken ship started venting atmosphere and crew into space. Direct hits on all primary targets, Ross reported, already lining up her next shots. Enemy ships showing critical damage. The Dominion fleet finally started to respond. Alarm signals flashed between their ships, and weapon systems began powering up. But they were still confused, still trying to understand what was happening. Multiple enemy weapons powering up, Baker called from her station. They're trying to coordinate their fire. Miller nodded calmly. Nexus analyzed their firing patterns. The AI's response was immediate. Analysis complete. Predicting 97 possible attack vectors. Calculating optimal evasion course. The captain didn't hesitate. Execute evasion pattern. A Thunderchild moved like a dancer, sliding between enemy shots with impossible grace. Green energy beams from Dominion weapons passed through the space where the ship had been just moments before. The Phantom Drive activated again and again, making the ship appear to jump from one spot to another. "Sir," Engineer Wilson's voice came through the comm. "The Phantom Drive is performing above expected levels. We can make 3 more jumps than we planned." "Good work, Tom," Miller replied. "Keep her running smooth." The Dominion fleet was in chaos now. Their perfect formation had broken apart as ships tried to track the Thunderchild's movements. Some of them were firing wildly, hoping to hit the human ship by luck. Instead, they were hitting each other. A massive explosion lit up space as one Dominion destroyer's shots hit one of its own cruisers. The crystal ship broke apart in a shower of shining pieces, its crew tumbling out into the vacuum of space. Enemy fleet showing signs of confusion. Baker reported, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. Their communication signals are becoming erratic. Miller watched through the viewport as another Dominion ship tried to target them. "Ross, target that one's engine section. Let's show them what else these crystal breaker rounds can do." The rail guns fired again. This time, the rounds hit the enemy ship's engines. The special frequency of the bullets made the crystal engines vibrate until they cracked. The ship's power failed immediately, leaving it dead in space. "Sir, picking up new energy signatures," Baker called out. 5 enemy ships are charging their faster-than-light drives. "They're trying to run," Ross said, surprise clear in her voice. Miller shook his head. "Not all of them." "Nexus, what's the rest of the fleet doing?" The AI responded instantly. "Remaining enemy vessels are attempting to form a defensive circle. Analysis suggests they are preparing for a concentrated attack." "That's exactly what we want," Miller said. "Get ready for attack pattern Delta." "Wilson, how's our power looking?" "All systems at 90%, sir. The Phantom Drive is still performing perfectly." The Dominion ships had finally managed to form their circle. Their weapons were all pointed outward, ready to fire in every direction. They thought they were being clever, leaving no blind spots. They didn't understand that they had just made themselves a perfect target. "Nexus, calculate jump points for maximum damage," Miller ordered. "Calculations complete. Recommended attack pattern will allow us to disable 7 enemy ships with a single action." Miller smiled. "You heard it. Ross, prepare all weapons. Baker, monitor their shield frequencies. Wilson, get ready for maximum power to the Phantom Drive." He paused for one breath. "Execute attack pattern Delta." The Thunderchild disappeared again, but this time it was different. The ship jumped rapidly between 7 points, appearing just long enough at each location to fire its weapons before vanishing again. To the Dominion fleet, it must have looked like they were being attacked by 7 ships at once. The results were devastating. Crystal hulls shattered, engines exploded, and weapon systems failed. The defensive circle collapsed as ships tried to escape the attack, crashing into each other in their panic. "Sir," Baker called out, excitement in her voice, "I'm picking up something interesting. The enemy ships are broadcasting distress signals. But they're not just calling for help. They're warning other ships to stay away." Miller nodded. This was even better than they had hoped. The Dominion wasn't just losing the battle. They were losing their confidence. Enemy fleet is down to 27 operational ships, Ross reported. The rest are either destroyed or disabled. The remaining Dominion ships were starting to break formation completely now. Some were still trying to fight, but their shots were wild and uncoordinated. Others were turning away, their engines glowing as they prepared to flee. "Sir," the Nexus system's calm voice announced, "I'm detecting a power surge in the enemy flagship. Analysis suggests they are preparing to broadcast a long-range communication." "Let them," Miller said. "It's time for the next part of our plan. Baker, prepare our message. Ross, target the flagship's communication array. But wait for my order." The Dominion flagship was easy to spot now. It was bigger than the other ships, its crystal hull decorated with complex patterns that showed its importance. Its communication array was powering up, getting ready to tell the rest of the Dominion fleet about what had happened here. Miller watched the enemy flagship for a moment, thinking about all the human colonies that had been destroyed, all the lives that had been lost. This wasn't about revenge. It was about showing the Dominion that humanity wouldn't be an easy target anymore. "Message ready, sir," Baker reported. "Weapons locked on target," Ross added. Miller took a deep breath. "Send the message, then disable their communications." The Thunderchild transmitted a short, simple message directly into the flagship's computers. "This was one ship. We have more." A second later, Ross's shot destroyed the flagship's communication array in a burst of crystal fragments. "Message confirmed received," Baker said. "Their systems accepted our data packet before the array was destroyed." The battle was almost over now. The remaining Dominion ships were retreating in all directions, their perfect formation forgotten. They didn't even try to help their damaged companions. Each ship was only thinking about saving itself. Miller watched them go, feeling a mix of satisfaction and sadness. The Thunderchild had won a great victory today, but he knew the war wasn't over. Still, they had done what they set out to do. They had shown the Dominion that attacking human colonies wasn't safe anymore. "Stand down from battle stations," he ordered. "Wilson, start damage assessment. Ross, keep weapons ready just in case. Baker, start collecting all the sensor data. Earth Command will want every detail of what happened here." As his crew began their work, Miller looked out at the battlefield one last time. The debris field was different now, filled with broken pieces of crystal ships instead of mining colony wreckage. It was a message written in destruction. Humanity was ready to fight back. The remaining Dominion ships regrouped at a safe distance, just within range of the Thunderchild's long-range sensors. They had lost almost half their fleet, but they still had numbers on their side. More importantly, they had lost their fear. Now they were angry. "They're changing their tactics," Baker said, watching her sensor readings carefully. "The surviving ships are forming into smaller groups. 3 ships per group, spread out in attack formation." Miller studied the enemy positions on his command screen. The Dominion fleet was trying to be smarter now. Instead of one big target, they had become many small ones. They thought this would make it harder for the Thunderchild to use its phantom drive effectively. "Nexus, analyze their new formation," Miller ordered. "What are they planning?" The AI took less than a second to respond. "Enemy fleet has adopted a multi-vector attack strategy. They will attempt to overwhelm our defenses by attacking from multiple directions simultaneously. Probability of successful defense using standard tactics, 42%. "Good thing we don't use standard tactics," Miller said. "Wilson, how's our power looking?" The chief engineer's voice came through with a hint of pride. "Main reactor is still running strong, sir. The phantom drive is actually working better than in our tests. The real-world combat data is helping it learn and adjust." That was exactly what Miller wanted to hear. Every minute of this battle was making their ship smarter and more efficient. The Nexus system was learning, adapting, becoming more powerful. But they had to survive long enough to use that advantage. "Sir," Ross called out from the weapons station. Enemy ships are powering up their main guns. Energy readings are off the charts. They're overcharging their weapons. The Dominion ships' crystal hulls were glowing now, channeling power into their weapons. They were preparing to fire everything they had, trying to overwhelm the Thunderchild with sheer firepower. Miller's mind raced through their options. The Phantom Drive could avoid some of the shots, but not all of them. They needed something else, something unexpected. His eyes fell on the debris field around them. Broken pieces of crystal ships floating in space. An idea formed in his mind. "Nexus, can you calculate the exact positions of all the crystal debris?" he asked. "Affirmative. All debris positions tracked and monitored." "Good. Plot me a course that uses those debris pieces as shields. When their shots hit the crystal fragments, I want the energy to reflect back at them." There was a pause as the AI calculated. Course plotted. Warning: this maneuver will require precise timing and positioning. Recommended solution includes using the Phantom Drive to move debris into optimal positions before enemy weapons fire. "Do it," Miller ordered. "Wilson, give the Phantom Drive everything you can. Ross, be ready with counterfire the moment their shots miss us." The Thunderchild began to move, but not to escape. Instead, it darted between pieces of debris, the Phantom Drive reaching out to touch broken crystal ships and move them slightly. To the Dominion fleet, it must have looked like the human ship was dancing through the wreckage. But each move had a purpose. "Enemy weapons at 90% charge," Baker reported. "They're about to fire. All hands, brace for maneuver," Miller called over the ship-wide comm. Then, more quietly, "Nexus, execute defense pattern." The Dominion ships fired all at once, their weapons releasing beams of energy so bright they looked like new stars being born. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small moon. But the Thunderchild was already moving. The ship phased through space, appearing exactly where the Nexus system had calculated. As the energy beams approached, they hit the carefully positioned crystal debris. The crystal fragments didn't break this time. Instead, they reflected the energy, sending it bouncing back toward the Dominion ships. The alien fleet hadn't expected this. Their own weapons' fire hit their crystal hulls, making them vibrate at exactly the wrong frequency. 3 ships shattered instantly. 4 more lost power and began drifting. The rest scattered, trying to avoid their own reflected shots. "Direct hits confirmed," Ross reported, her fingers flying over her weapons console. Enemy ships showing severe damage from their own weapons. But Miller saw something else happening too. The Nexus system was collecting data from every shot, every movement, every reaction. It was learning how the Dominion ships moved, how their weapons worked, how their crews thought. The longer the battle went on, the more the AI learned. "Sir," Wilson called from engineering, "the Phantom Drive is picking up new tricks. It's found ways to phase through things we didn't think were possible. The Nexus system is rewriting its own protocols." That was the true power of their ship. It wasn't just fighting, it was evolving. Each engagement made it stronger, smarter, more capable. The Dominion fleet was fighting against an enemy that got better every minute. "Enemy ships regrouping again," Baker announced. "They're trying something new. Multiple ships are linking their power systems together." Miller watched as the remaining Dominion ships formed new patterns. They were connecting their crystal hulls, sharing energy between ships. It was an impressive display of coordination, but it was also exactly what the Thunderchild wanted them to do. "Nexus, analyze their power links," Miller ordered. "Find me a weak point." "Analysis complete," the AI responded. "Detecting vulnerability in power transfer nodes. Recommended attack vector calculated." The Dominion ships had finished linking together. Energy flowed between them like lightning, making their crystal hulls pulse with light. They thought they were making themselves stronger. Instead, they had created a perfect chain of targets. "Ross, target the primary power node with crystal breaker rounds," Miller ordered. "Wilson, prepare for emergency power to shields. This is going to be bright." The Thunderchild fired a single shot, The special round hit exactly where the ship's power systems connected. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the energy flowing between the Dominion ships went wild, feeding back through their connected systems. The chain reaction was spectacular. Each ship's power system overloaded the next one in line. Crystal hulls cracked and shattered as too much energy poured through them. The linked ships fell apart one after another, like a row of falling dominoes made of light and crystal. "Enemy fleet is in full retreat," Baker reported, trying to keep the excitement out of her voice. "Their remaining ships are breaking formation and running in all directions." Miller watched the Dominion ships flee, their perfect tactics forgotten. They had started this battle thinking they were facing a simple human warship. Now they were running from something they couldn't understand. A ship that learned from every attack, that turned their own strength against them, that fought in ways that should be impossible. "Stand down to yellow alert," Miller ordered. "Wilson, start checking all systems. I want to know everything the Phantom Drive learned during that fight. Ross, keep weapons hot just in case they try to come back. Baker, start compiling all the combat data. The Nexus system needs every bit of information we can give it." As his crew carried out their orders, Miller looked out at the battlefield again. The space around them was filled with floating crystal fragments that sparkled like stars. Each piece was a reminder of what one ship and its crew could do when they refused to give up. The Thunderchild hadn't just won a battle, it had changed the way space combat worked forever. The Dominion would be back, probably with bigger fleets and new weapons. But they would never again make the mistake of thinking humans were easy targets. The dance was far from over, but now everyone knew who was leading it. The Dominion fleet admiral was desperate now. Nothing in their combat manuals covered this situation. One human ship had destroyed nearly 2/3 of their fleet, and worse, it was fighting in ways that made no sense. The admiral gave new orders. All remaining ships were to fire at everything that moved. They would fill space with so many energy beams that nothing could dodge them all. On the Thunderchild's bridge, Baker watched the enemy's wild shooting with growing concern. "Sir, they're firing without any pattern now. Just spraying weapons fire everywhere." Miller nodded calmly. He had expected this. When smart enemies got scared, they often became dangerous enemies. "How many of their shots are hitting their own ships?" "At least 1 in 3, Captain. They're doing more damage to themselves than we are now." The Nexus system's voice joined the conversation. "Analysis of enemy fire patterns complete. They have abandoned tactical doctrine in favor of saturation fire. This presents both danger and opportunity." Miller leaned forward in his command chair. "Explain." "Their random firing pattern makes individual shots harder to predict, but it also means their fleet's movements have become predictable. They are remaining stationary to maintain maximum fire coverage. This makes their positions easy to calculate." That was exactly what Miller had been waiting to hear. The Dominion fleet had fallen into the oldest trap in combat. They had let fear overcome their training. Now it was time to show them why that was a mistake. "Wilson," Miller called to engineering, "what have we learned about their crystal hulls?" The chief engineer's voice was excited. "Something interesting, sir. Every time they hit each other, the crystal fragments give off a specific energy pattern. The Nexus system has been analyzing it. We think we can use their own shots to create a kind of chain reaction." Miller smiled. This was why humans were still winning wars even against more advanced enemies. They didn't just use their technology. They found new ways to use it that no one had thought of before. "Ross," he called to his weapons officer, "can you target specific pieces of debris?" "Yes, sir," she replied instantly. The targeting computer can track individual crystal fragments as small as a finger. "Good, because we're about to try something new." Miller straightened in his chair. "All hands, this is the captain. What we're about to do has never been attempted before. It might look crazy, but I need everyone to trust the plan and do exactly what they're told." The Nexus system had already understood what Miller was thinking. Captain, I have calculated the optimal positions for crystal fragment deployment. Recommend using Phantom Drive to position debris for maximum chain reaction effect. Do it, Miller ordered. Wilson, give the Phantom Drive everything it can handle. Ross, be ready to fire on my mark. Baker, track every piece of debris and every enemy shot. We need to time this perfectly. The Thunderchild began to move again, but this time it wasn't dodging. Instead, it was using the Phantom Drive to grab pieces of broken crystal ships and move them into precise positions. The Dominion fleet kept firing, not understanding that each wild shot was helping to set up their own destruction. Sir, Baker called out suddenly. 3 enemy ships just took critical damage from their own fire. Their power cores are going unstable. Miller saw the opportunity immediately. Ross, target those unstable cores. Wilson, prepare for emergency jump. Nexus, calculate blast radius and safe distance. The Thunderchild fired 3 precise shots. Each one hit an already damaged power core, causing it to overload. The explosion sent waves of energy washing across space, making the carefully positioned crystal fragments vibrate at exactly the right frequency. What happened next was like watching a row of mirrors break in slow motion. The energy from the explosions hit the crystal fragments, which reflected and amplified it. Each piece of crystal sent the energy on to the next piece, growing stronger each time. When the energy reached the Dominion ships, their crystal hulls couldn't handle the resonance. Ships began breaking apart all across the battlefield. Some shattered instantly, while others cracked slowly, pieces falling away like ice breaking in spring. The Dominion crews never had a chance to understand what was happening to them. Multiple enemy ships breaking up, Baker reported, her voice full of awe. The chain reaction is spreading faster than they can move. The Nexus system was recording everything, learning from each new explosion, each new crack, each new pattern of destruction. It was turning the battle into data, analyzing every detail to become even more effective. Sir, Wilson called from engineering. The Phantom Drive is picking up new energy signatures we've never seen before. The Nexus system says it's learning how to phase through energy fields, not just solid matter. That was impossible according to every physics textbook in human space, but Miller had stopped believing in impossible things the moment they'd built this ship. Can we use it? Already working on it, sir, Wilson replied. The Nexus system is rewriting its own protocols in real time. It's like the ship is evolving while we fight. On the main screen, Miller watched as the Dominion fleet fell apart. Their formation was completely broken now, ships trying to flee in every direction. But they couldn't escape the chain reaction their own weapons had started. The battlefield had become a trap, and they were caught in it. Enemy Admiral's ship is transmitting, Baker announced. They're trying to surrender, sir. Miller shook his head. No, not yet. They need to understand exactly what they're dealing with. He paused for a moment. Nexus, can you get us inside their flagship shields? Affirmative, the AI replied. New Phantom Drive protocols allow for energy field penetration with 78% success rate. Do it. Ross, prepare to fire a warning shot. Just close enough to crack their bridge viewport. The Thunderchild vanished and reappeared inside the Dominion flagship shields, something that should have been absolutely impossible. They were so close that the crew could see the alien admiral standing at his command station, his crystal-like face showing an expression of pure shock. Ross fired one shot. It hit just to the left of the flagship's main viewport, sending a small crack spreading across the crystal hull. The message was clear. We could destroy you anytime we want. Now they can surrender, Miller said quietly. The Dominion flagship's signal came through clear and desperate. They were surrendering not just their ship, but their entire fleet. More importantly, they were sending out a warning to all other Dominion forces. Do not engage this human vessel under any circumstances. Sir, Baker said, checking her readings, I'm picking up something strange from the debris field. The crystal fragments. They're still resonating. The Nexus system says they're forming some kind of network. Miller understood then. They hadn't just won a battle. They had discovered a whole new way of fighting. The crystal debris field had become a weapon, a communication network, and a defense system all at once. The Thunderchild had turned the Dominion's own technology against them in ways they had never imagined possible. "Record everything," he ordered. "Every piece of data, every energy reading, every resonance pattern. Humanity just changed the rules of space combat, and I want to make sure we remember how we did it." As his crew worked to document their victory, Miller looked out at the battlefield one last time. The space around them was filled with shattered crystal ships and floating debris, all of it glowing slightly from the energy of the chain reaction. It was beautiful in a strange way, like a field of broken stars. The Dominion had started this fight thinking they were hunting a wounded animal. Instead, they had forced humanity to evolve, to become something new and dangerous. The Thunderchild wasn't just a ship anymore. It was the first of a new kind of weapon, one that learned and grew stronger with every battle. And this was only the beginning. The last Dominion ship vanished into faster-than-light speed, leaving behind only scattered pieces of crystal and fading energy readings. On the Thunderchild's bridge, the crew watched it go in silence. They had done something that would be remembered for generations. They had changed the course of the war in a single battle. "Status report," Miller ordered, his voice tired but satisfied. Baker checked her screens carefully. "No enemy ships remaining in sensor range, sir. The ones that could still run have jumped away. The rest," she gestured at the debris field around them. 17 completely destroyed, Ross added from her weapons station. 22 disabled or abandoned. The rest escaped, but most of them have serious damage. Out of 50 ships, only 6 got away in fighting condition." Miller nodded slowly. The numbers were even better than they had hoped, but that wasn't the most important part. "Wilson, what's the status of our special systems?" The chief engineer's voice was excited despite his exhaustion. "Sir, you're not going to believe this. The Nexus system didn't just learn during the battle. It's still learning. It's analyzing everything that happened, finding new ways to use the Phantom Drive, discovering things about crystal technology that the Dominion probably doesn't even know." That was exactly what Earth Command had hoped would happen. The Thunderchild wasn't just a warship. It was a research mission, a way to learn everything they could about Dominion technology and tactics. Every second of the battle had been recorded, every piece of data stored for analysis. "Sir," Baker called out suddenly, "I'm picking up something strange from the disabled Dominion ships. Their crews, they're abandoning ship. Escape pods are launching." Miller watched as small crystal pods ejected from the damaged ships. The Dominion crews were running away from their own vessels, afraid that the ships might explode or break apart at any moment. They had lost faith in their supposedly unbreakable technology. "Life support status on those pods?" Miller asked. "All functioning," Baker replied. "They have enough air and power for at least a week. Rescue ships will find them long before they run out of supplies." Miller smiled slightly. This was another message to the Dominion. Humans didn't just destroy their enemies. They made sure the survivors were safe. It was a kind of strength that the Dominion had never understood. "Sir," the Nexus system's calm voice announced, "I have completed my analysis of the battle data. Would you like to hear my conclusions?" "Go ahead," Miller said, curious about what the AI had learned. The Dominion fleet's defeat was not primarily due to our technological advantages. Their main weakness was their inability to adapt to unexpected situations. They relied too heavily on pre-planned tactics and assumed that their technology made them invulnerable. When faced with an enemy that could learn and change strategies during battle, they were unable to respond effectively. That was an insight that went beyond just this battle. It explained why humanity, despite having less advanced technology, had been able to resist the Dominion for so long. Humans were good at adapting, at finding new ways to use whatever tools they had. "Wilson," Miller called to engineering. "What's the status of the Phantom drive?" "Better than new, sir," the engineer replied. "All that practice jumping around during the battle helped us fine-tune it. The Nexus system says we can now phase through things we didn't even think were possible before. And that's not all. We learned something amazing about how the Dominion's crystal technology works." Miller leaned forward in his chair. "Tell me. Their ships aren't just made of crystal, sir. The whole crystal structure is like one big computer. Every piece is connected to every other piece. That's why our crystal breaker rounds work so well. We weren't just breaking their hulls. We were disrupting their whole command and control system." That was valuable information. If every piece of Dominion crystal technology was connected, it meant their entire fleet might share the same weaknesses. One discovery here could lead to victories across the whole war. "Captain," Baker interrupted, "incoming transmission from Earth Command. Priority 1. Miller straightened his uniform. "Put it through to my station." Admiral Chen's face appeared on his screen. The old admiral looked tired but happy. "Captain Miller, we've been watching everything through the quantum relay. Outstanding work. You've given us more than just a victory. You've given us hope." "Thank you, sir," Miller replied. "But I should tell you, this ship has exceeded all our expectations. The Nexus system has learned things about Dominion technology that could change everything." "So we've seen." The admiral smiled. "That's why I'm calling. Earth Command has made a decision. The Thunderchild was supposed to be a prototype, a test to see if our ideas would work. But after what you've shown us today, we're expanding the program. We're building more ships like yours." Miller felt his heart beat faster. "How many, sir?" "As many as we can. Every shipyard in human space is getting the plans right now. We're calling them the Phantom class. Each one will have its own Nexus system, able to learn and adapt just like yours. And every discovery your ship makes will be shared with all of them." That was the best news Miller had heard since the war began. One Thunderchild had been enough to destroy a Dominion fleet, a whole fleet of ships like it, each one learning and improving with every battle, would be unstoppable. "There's more," the Admiral continued. "We're picking up transmissions from all over Dominion space. The survivors of your battle are spreading the word. Some of their frontier colonies are already talking about independence. They're starting to think that maybe the Dominion isn't as powerful as they thought." Miller understood what that meant. The Thunderchild hadn't just won a battle. It had started a chain reaction that could break the Dominion's power forever. All because one ship and its crew had proved that humanity couldn't be pushed around anymore. "Your orders," Admiral Chen said, "are to come home. We need the Thunderchild's data to help build the new ships. But don't take a direct route. Visit a few Dominion-controlled systems on the way. Let them see you. Let them wonder if you're coming for them next." "Yes, sir," Miller replied. "We'll make sure they remember us." After the Admiral's face disappeared from the screen, Miller turned to his crew. They all looked tired but proud. They had done something that would be remembered for generations. "Plot a course for Earth," he ordered. "But let's take the scenic route. I want every Dominion ship in this sector to see us coming. I want them to remember what one human ship can do." As the Thunderchild's engines powered up, Miller looked out at the battlefield one last time. The debris field was still there, crystal fragments spinning slowly in space. But it wasn't just wreckage anymore. It was a monument. Every broken piece of crystal was a reminder that humanity had found its strength. The ship turned toward home, its Phantom drive humming with power. They had started this mission hoping to prove that humanity could fight back. Instead, they had proved something much more important, that humanity could win. Behind them, the broken Dominion fleet hung in space like a warning. Ahead of them lay a future where humans didn't have to hide or run. The Thunderchild had shown the way. Now it was time to make sure everyone knew that the rules